Now we've got big news coming out of the Senate as President Trump's DEA pick for DEA administrator has been approved, and now certain groups like the NCIA are calling for rescheduling to be completed as soon as possible.
A major development out of Washington today, and it's one the cannabis industry has been watching very closely. Terrence Cole is now officially the new DEA administrator. The cloture vote confirmed him in a razor-thin 44-43 vote earlier this week, and with the Senate's confirmation now complete, Cole takes over as DEA administrator, giving Trump's pick the authority to lead the agency at a critical time for cannabis policy.
Now this is big news, guys, because talk about rescheduling has been happening for quite some time now. So much so that it feels as if everything has just stalled because nothing has happened. Now, no matter what your views may be on rescheduling, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I myself personally don't think it's the right answer, but a lot of people think it's a better step forward than no steps forward. Let me know what you guys think. But why it's so important is that for the first time, we've got one person who can direct the DEA as to how they want to go about rescheduling based on the recommendations made by the HHS, but also all of the research and information that would have been provided to those parties. Now, Terrence Cole has been questioned on rescheduling already in the past, and I'll run that clip for you guys in a bit. But first, let's have a look at this article and see who exactly is calling for rescheduling, because that's a little bit of a tricky topic. Now, according to this, and I quote, "The Senate has given final approval to President Donald Trump's pick to run the DEA, and a major the industry association is already pushing for him to get the job done on the long-stalled federal rescheduling process." Now, what I found pretty interesting about this is that this group that's calling for rescheduling is not a political group. It's not necessarily a politician either. But instead, this is the National Cannabis Industry Association, or the NCIA, and they wasted no time in putting pressure on Cole to see through that rescheduling process, which was initiated under President Biden. Now, the rescheduling process under the previous administration was unnecessarily protracted and fraught by allegations of malfeasance within the DEA, and we look forward to your renewed leadership to expedite this process and fulfill President Trump's campaign promise to unlock the medical uses of the good herb to a Schedule III drug and ultimately implement smarter regulations while providing access for adults to safe and tested products. And this is the words of the NCIA, Mr. Aaron Smith, in his letter, which he sent straight to the DEA. Now, again, I find it pretty interesting that this is a pro kind of group that's actually calling for rescheduling, when you guys know there are a lot of concerns when it comes to rescheduling, that it may not actually be the best thing for the industry, especially if Big Pharma gets involved and it's moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, which is prescription drugs. But that being said, let's hear what other people have to say about Terrence Cole and why this may not necessarily be that much of a bad thing.
This is a big step forward because for months, the DEA has been operating under acting leadership. Now, for the first time in quite a while, there's a permanent leader in place. So, what does this mean for the rescheduling process? What could it mean for enforcement? And how should cannabis operators, investors, and advocates interpret this? And with that, let's break it all down. First, let's look at what happened. This was one of the closest confirmation votes we've seen for a DEA nominee in years. 44 senators voted in favor of confirming Cole, 43 opposed him. It took weeks of political wrangling, closed-door meetings, and a narrow cloture vote just yesterday to even get to this point. The vote is a sign of just how divided this issue is in Washington right now, and it is very divided. But despite the razor-thin margin, Cole now officially takes over as the head of the DEA. And this comes at a time when the agency's role in cannabis reform, especially around the rescheduling review, has never been more important. Cole has been described as someone with a tough, no-nonsense approach to enforcement. His background includes years of work in federal law enforcement with a strong focus on dismantling large-scale drug trafficking networks.
So that right there may cause some people cause for concern. He was a former cop, former history in law enforcement, and he has a pretty stiff stance when it comes to drugs. Now, that being said, I'll dig into what he says about rescheduling in particular, but when we speak about some of these drugs, I personally believe that he's talking about some of the harder drugs, stuff like fentanyl, and some of those stuff that are really destroying communities. And when you really dig into it, a lot of those stuff are involved heavily in the cartel business, and that's what he says right here. Have a listen.
That started with talking about the border and keeping the border secure on the southern part and the northern part. And then we dove into talking about the cartels in their drive in Mexico. Not only their drive in Mexico, but the corruption that's associated with the cartels from the government, from the financial institutions.
Are there parts of Mexico that are pretty much governed by cartels?
Yes, sir.
What percentage of the country of Mexico would you say is dominantly governed by cartels?
Well, I would say a majority. I left DEA in 2019 from Mexico City and saw the dominance that the cartels had at that time. CJNG controlled 24 of the states in Mexico.
Let's just slow down for a second.
Now, just a quick reminder, guys, if you're getting value from this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us further, join the ICANN VIP Bean Club or just buy us a cup of coffee. And if you happen to be a home gardener, try the ICANN Organics. Use the code LEGAL. It'll work on the bundle and the beans. So with his background in law enforcement, he's really got an eye on some of these cartels. And not just that, but how they can be destructive. And personally, I think that having an eye on that does not necessarily mean that you're against the good herb. But my view may not be shared by everyone, so let's hear what Shah Dales had to say of the Dales Report.
But his views on cannabis policy, that's where things are less clear. So what do we actually know about Terrence Coles' stance? Not much. And that's why this appointment is being met with both optimism, but also some caution. On one hand, Cole has publicly stated that he supports modernizing enforcement priorities to focus on violent crime and major trafficking operations. Some observers interpret that as a potential willingness to deprioritize small-scale cannabis enforcement. On the other hand, Cole has never explicitly stated where he stands on marijuana rescheduling. He hasn't said whether he believes cannabis should be moved to Schedule 3, which is kept as a Schedule 1 drug, or handled differently altogether. And that uncertainty is exactly why today's confirmation is so significant, because for the first time, we now have a single individual with the authority to guide how the DEA proceeds with this whole rescheduling process.
So where exactly does he stand when it comes to the good herb and to rescheduling? What exactly is he going to recommend when it comes to the rescheduling process? That question was asked directly to him, and let's hear exactly what he had to say in response to Senator Alex Padilla when they questioned him just a few weeks ago.
Before I get to that one, another specific to the four corners of DEA. What are your views on the DEA's proposed rescheduling of marijuana, and what role do you see yourself playing in ensuring the process moves forward responsibly?
So, Senator, thank you. And if confirmed, it'll be one of my first priorities when I arrive to DEA to see where we are in the administrative process. I'm not familiar exactly where we are, but I know the process has been delayed numerous times, and it's time to move forward.
Okay, well, the process that's undergoing is to move marijuana to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Substances Act. So we're maybe somewhere in the process. Are you committed to seeing it to fruition?
I need to understand more where they are and look at the science behind it and listen to the experts and really understand where they are in the process.
We know where we are. We know what the directive is. Get it to Schedule 3. Are you committed to seeing it to fruition?
So I don't know. I haven't seen that.
So you're leaving the door open to changing course as to...
I'm leaving the door open to studying everything that's been done so far, so I can make a determination, sir.
So make myself a note here, no answer to that particular question.
You guys see what they try to do in these hearings, right? They try to get you to say something which you're not necessarily always comfortable saying without having all the information directly in front of you. And that's exactly what Terrence Cole said in this situation. He needs to assess all the information, see where they are at currently, because as you guys would have heard, it's been hauled up, it's been delayed, it's been ballsed up for quite some time now. So we need to understand exactly where we are, where we're heading, and also get some expert advice from all of the professionals, not just the politicians who have big pharma in their pockets, big alcohol in their pockets, and want to schedule it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 because they're obviously going to get some financial benefit or incentive from that, but rather some of those professionals who may have a point of view that's different from that and suggest that, hey, maybe we should deschedule it altogether, remove it entirely from the list of controlled substances. And if that's an option, that's the option that I would prefer to go with, rather than schedule it to Schedule 3. So that being said, I try to think for myself and see what's the best option and what's the best way to move forward when it comes to rescheduling. And that's why I personally don't think that Schedule 3 is the answer at all. But what else could this appointment and Terry Cole's confirmation mean for the industry?
So let's get this going. But again, I can't stress on this enough. We still don't know how Cole personally views cannabis rescheduling. He could push the process forward, he could slow it down, or he could hold the line until Congress forces a broader decision. Either way, the industry finally has a point person to watch, and that is a good thing. So what does this mean for enforcement? Cole's enforcement philosophy could also have a big impact on how the legal and illicit cannabis markets evolve over the next year. Cole has a reputation for being aggressive against illegal trafficking networks, and Trump's administration has made it clear that they're cracking down on the illicit cannabis market, and it's a top priority. So don't expect Cole to ease up on enforcement against unlicensed operators, especially those tied to organized crime and really the CCP. So what about licensed state legal cannabis businesses? That's where things could get a little bit complicated. Cole has said in the past statements, though not specifically about cannabis, that federal resources should be focused where they're most effective. So some are hopeful that this means less attention will be given to state licensed cannabis operations that are already complying with strict regulations. But until Cole makes an official statement, it's hard to know for sure.
So I guess at this point, all we can do is wait to see what happens. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that this appointment is a good thing or a bad thing? And do you guys think rescheduling in a wider picture is a good thing or a bad thing? Drop in the comments down below and let me know. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a crazy interview which dropped with Hunter Biden where he actually says that alcohol is the most destructive drug out there. It's even more destructive than crack. So if you haven't seen it, check it out because that video is coming up right now.